possible, faster than it did in the presidential election, because the territories where these ones are operating, they're at subnational level. They're much more marginal, smaller compared to the presidential one. So in terms of logistics, in terms of processing of the results, I don't think it should be as cumbersome as it was with the presidential election. So we expect to see that by tomorrow, for instance, the results should start coming out. And it's important that the results should count, There's no need for anyone to pervert the process, It is when people try to circumvent the process, when you're trying to change the results at points of collision, that crisis will start coming out. And maybe fourthly, Fisher, is to advise that it's not the time that you want to go to court, because you think you've been shortchanged. Even when in many obvious cases where people are losing, they still explore the court avenue. Yes, it is their rightful, it's their legitimate rights, but we should be careful not to create tension, not to increase tension in the land, because going to court is okay, it's constitutional, but there's a sense in also saying that it can bring about tension and distract us from the rightful challenge, rightful desire to improve a lot, through our economy.
You made a very germane comment, and that is the fact that the governorship, that's gubernatorial elections, and of course the state assembly elections, are closer to the people. Yeah. Now, in terms of, when you look at that and when you look at this, this comment that you've made, are the stakes higher in terms of, because the faces are recognizable, they live in the neighborhood, people know them. Because of that, are we expecting even more tension? Because, of course, as you said, it's closer. The people feel that they are directly involved.
We're already seeing the tension, really. We're already seeing the tension. Now we should expect some more. And that's why we have to call on the security agencies to be up and doing, to be above board in the discharge of their responsibilities, because the governors wield a lot of influence in their localities, It's been said severally that some of them will act as emperors. Can you blame them for this? No, because the system in which they are finding themselves is the kind of environment in which they are operating, where there is so much emphasis on patronage, patronage, on prebendal disposition of the average citizen, whether a follower or a leader as well. So there is so much expectation placed on the office of the governor in terms of wealth distribution, in terms of sharing of resources, even illegally. So because of these, attention is always placed to governorship contest, And I'm sure we're going to see some figures at some point. If you see the number of people running for these offices in the state, it's quite humongous, and almost senseless and meaningless, And it goes to tell you how much interest people are paying to it, because they know that it's an important source to material prosperity, again, illegally. So we expect that greater attention will be paid to governorship election. There will be greater interest, okay? And of course, we can anticipate some legal tussle, even if we are going to continue to advise against it, so that we'll not also overstress the judiciary. But at the end of the day, it's okay that we're having the election. It's interesting. It's like a festival. It's gratifying. We're making progress in the democratic evolution. After the presidential election, we are now having the governorship election. So it's all good. I mean, it's a glorification of our system and our nation. So it's important that we'll have it done peacefully.
And just to buttress your fact, your statement on the elections itself, 7 states won't be participating simply because of, the tussle you spoke about.
Very well. There are seven off-cycle offices in the election states, and it came from this kind of judicial battle, court engagement, and the fear is that with the governorship election that we're experiencing now, the experiences we're having now, that the fear is that it might increase, because there's so much tension in some states, in some 2, 3, 4, 5 states, that you expect they're not likely to agree with the outcome. So you can almost predict it, except a miracle happens. So but how long are we going to continue with this? I hope at some point in the future we'll not be looking for ways to make all states conduct the election at the same time. But now that the thing is snowballing, it's gradually snowballing, we should begin to advise ourselves against elongating the battle for leadership, whether rightly or wrongly. But most times it's even wrongly. And if you look at the states, really, the fact that they find it difficult to agree, it's a reflection of the political temperature in each of those states. Then you'll be asking yourself the question, why are tempers, why are political tempers, political tension, why are they higher in some states as against the other? Okay? So it's just a kind of attitudinal thing that we can talk to ourselves about. Or are we saying that we should begin to review our state laws so that each state can have its own kind of legal system, such as to reflect their own temper, as it is happening in the United States of America? If that is what we are saying, then we should begin to open up that conversation going forward.
All right, we're talking about increased aggression in some states, and then we're also seeing issues of more vandalism, especially arson on INEC facilities across the country. Alarming, and the one that came yesterday from Akwa Ibom is it was completely razed down with about 15 generators completely rendered useless and burnt. Why is this new wave of arson?
It's definitely condemnable, very unfortunate, dastardly acts, if you want, and there's no way you can justify it. It's the point we've been making about the need for us to eschew violence in political contestation. And it reminds us of the absence of understanding, the lack of appreciation of the philosophy behind elections. Election can be likened ordinarily to a game, and in any game, you should expect to either win or lose. And if you win, it's not the end of the world. If you win today, it doesn't mean you cannot you cannot lose tomorrow. And if you lose today, it doesn't mean you cannot win tomorrow. So if we have these variable attitude, disposition to electioneering campaign, electioneering contest, then we won't be die-hearted about winning. Neither are we going to be feeling a heavy sense of loss when we lose. It's just like a game, really. And we also have a lot to learn from developed democracies that we sometimes want to refer to. So many times you even see that they have reasons to dispute elections, but the system discourages them, and they just move on quickly by congratulating the declared winner. We have had it happen in 2015 here, and we would have thought by now that we should learn from these things. But unfortunately, we are still resorting to violence, thinking that we just must win at all cost, or that our candidate must carry today.
All right, let's, we have 29 states, very fully involved in this process today. And of course, INEC also proactively rescheduled those elections of the National Assembly that were inconclusive the last time, 21 constituencies. In your estimation and in your evaluation, these elections that have, of course, also been lumped with the State Assembly elections and the gubernatorial elections in those, will it ensure a seamless process in terms of the added responsibility, for instance, to INEC ad hoc staff? Or, in your evaluation, is it a good development, since INEC would also be able to cut costs using the same day to do these elections?
See, if you look at the statements, pronouncements of INEC helmsmen, from the chairman to the national commissioners and the resident electoral commissioners, they won't leave you in any doubts regarding their readiness to deliver a smooth election. They seem obviously very ready at the level of logistics, you know, at the level of mobilization of resources, you know, sensitive and non-sensitive materials, like they say, and even at the level of their psychology. You know, we had these ahead of the presidential election, and we're also having it ahead of the governorship election. So I'm not in doubt, really, regarding whether or not they are prepared. What happens is, what about the other elements? Elections, we've been told, is a multi-stakeholder process. If INEC is prepared, what about the other agencies? What about the voters? What about those that we are supposed to elect? You know, they are playing their part ordinarily from what we're seeing, but the onus is on the rest of us to be alive as well to our responsibilities and keep our eyes on the ball, remove focus, avoid violence, you know, and abide by procedures. You know, these are simple things, but there are simple things that we probably cannot take for granted, because if we have to take the attitude, the behavior of human beings for granted, then there won't be laws. If we expect that human beings will be rational all the time, that they will behave very well all the time, then there won't be need for laws. You know, but what we need to do is for us to continue to admonish voters, okay, on the need to be dutiful, to be law-abiding, to eschew violence. And of course, if you still think that despite all those admonitions, despite all those preachments, you still want to go against the law, then the law, the wrath of the law will be invoked against you. It's important that we implement the law as dutifully as possible. It's important we make people, we prosecute people so that we can deter others from committing the same offense, because the laws are not there for the sake of it. They are there for implementation.
Now, INEC itself seems to be cleaning house at the moment in terms of, its own staff, because we got a report from Makadi where the REC, the Resident Electoral Commissioner, was talking about, transfers, changing officers that were manning different sections, different zones, and even recalling some to their quarters while the process was. He used the word quarantine in that report yesterday. So it seems to me as if the umpire itself was also cleaning house to make sure that we have a seamless process today. Which
is also very good. You know, that means they are looking inwards. It's not the time that you want to externalize problems or challenges. Sometimes it's good for you to look inwards, you know. So house cleaning is a natural thing. It's an ideal thing in any organizational process. You know, so it's salutary. It's heartening that INEC is concerned about its internal dynamics. You know, so again, if you look at it, you see that they're probably interested in perfection or in perfecting their activities so that their name can also be engraved in gold. And it's a very tough job, no doubt. Even if they have their own imperfections, even if they have their own downsides, you must commend the fact that, you know, they are doing they're on a monumental assignment, and they cannot afford to fail, because INEC is a springboard around which a democratic experiment revolves. Okay, so if you break any of the spring, directly or indirectly, consciously or unconsciously, slowly or quickly, I mean, it's not going to be good for us at the end of the day, because we have made this resolve loudly that democracy is the way to go. You know, even if we have to review it with time, but for now we are happy with it, because it's about involvement, it's about participation, and there's a sense in also saying that it's one system of government that trigger openness, you know, which is a precursor to economic progress.
All right, okay? you spoke about the last round of elections, low turnout. Another aspect is the huge number of cancelled votes. What can we learn from that process so that we don't see that kind of lacuna in this one?
It was unfortunate that we had reports of some people, huge numbers getting accredited and their votes not counting. You know, and from everything we had, we saw instances where INEC made promises through their chairman, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, that they will look into these things. we probably have to be optimistic, have to be reassured that they are looking into it and that at some point they will come out with a good solution to this problem. But it's also underscored the fact that irrespective of their attempts, irrespective of the many preachments that we're embarking upon on the need for us to have free, fair, and credible election, there are still people who are perverting the process. There are still people who are hell-bent on rigging elections, and people who think that they just have to win. And if it's not going to happen peacefully, if it's not going to happen genuinely, they are disposed to, going any length, to undercut the system, to circumvent the ideal processes and procedures. So that's just what it means, really. We expect to be having some teething problems, but it's also our expectation that we are going to be able to rise above these, and even if we're not perfecting the process, even if we cannot perfect the process, we should be as close as possible to a perfect electionary process.
All right, just while you were speaking, Minasara Kugu Umar, an international analyst on democracy and good governance and nation building, had joined us in the house. Thank you very much for obliging us.
Thank you very much. Happy democracy in Nigeria.
All right, let me welcome you with this question. You look confident. Perhaps you are expecting a huge turnout of very seamless process today.
Yes. There is nothing short of what you have said, because going by the practice of a fortnight ago, we had presidential and National Assembly elections a fortnight ago, and owing to the fact that even the elections got shifted by a week, so there is ample time for Independent National Electoral Commission to really prepare very well for it. And then secondly, the political parties too have gotten enough impetus within which to really get prepared for today's assignment. The National Orientation Agency has done an excellent job, more than even before, in terms of voter sensitization, in terms of civic education. These are fundamental things for you to ensure free, fair, and credible as well as peaceful elections. INEC, as of yesterday, has virtually done all the needful in respect of prompt delivery of materials. And then the enthusiasm portrayed by the citizenry right during the fortnight ago elections and today, they've really shown that they are really interested in discharging the fundamental duties enshrined in them by the Constitution as per Section 24, duties on the citizen. And this is equally another thing for us to appreciate, that people are taking their civic responsibilities very seriously as per Section 23 of the Constitution. So essentially, the way I look at it is that I'm confident of free, fair, even though there are some problems we have discovered recently. For example, the office in Akwa Ibom that got burnt, and then you cannot rule out everything completely to say you will expect a free exercise on that. But I'm sure INEC is up and doing. They must have gotten some backup arrangements in case of this type of negative eventualities, so that to be able to counter it within a limited time. So optimism is my word, and I believe so far from what we have seen, there is that resilience from the citizenry, there is that astute preparedness by the relevant governmental agencies in charge of the conduct of elections, and most importantly, the security agencies too. They have really demonstrated their firm commitment to assurance of maintenance of peace, security, and order across the length and breadth of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I believe by the address delivered by the Inspector General of Police and the directives, the deployments he has made just about 24 hours ago, of top security operatives to go and take care of the common structures at the level of the zonal, at the level of the state levels, and as well as the complementary effort of the other enforcement agencies. I believe they are not leaving anything to chances. We're going to have successful elections. This is my firm optimism.
I asked Dr. Ni before you came in, and the question is, a lot of people believe in terms of the passion, in terms of the emotions involved, this is even a higher stake for Nigerians because the government is closer to the people, and the elections, this one is closer. The governors are clansmen. The state assembly members are people you see on your streets. And as a result, perhaps there will even be more need for security to be more vigilant and be you know, eagle-eyed on things like this.
Exactly, and not even that, going even by the number of contestants this time around is higher than what we experienced 2 weeks ago. And it is true that those that are contested now are the closest people to the electors, especially if you take the case of FCT, for example, where you have local council election. I envisage a situation whereby in future the scope of INEC will be widened for INEC to be able to conduct local government elections all across the country. Because what we normally see regarding the quality and character of local government elections is a question of the governance party takes all, and which is not healthy for our democracy. We want to see democracy whereby, irrespective of whosoever is the governor, at the level of the local government structure, you should be able to have a polarized of representations by the political parties that are dominant there, and not necessarily the domination of the governor's political party. So it is true that we are expecting a more serious challenge, owing by the quantum involved, owing by the interest the people would naturally entrench, because these people that are going into this election are essentially the people that are closest to the government. And if you take the position of security apparatus, for example, that is the area one should have a little concern. Section 29 of Section 3 of the Electoral Act predicates the coordination of the security apparatus as far as well as the superintendent of the same on the Independent National Electoral Commission. I think the security agencies should take it beyond that provision, because if you take the position of the Constitution regarding security architecture of the country, particularly Section 100 and Section 124, for example, 114 to be precise to 116, it talks about the responsibility of the police to ensure the security of the entirety of the circumference called Federal Republic of Nigeria. So if you go into that, the police should not leave it into chances to say until INEC call on us to do it. Because going by the Police Act, Chapter 4 of the Police Act, for example, if you take it very critically, it has given even the police the power to really act instantly. For example, Section 24 of the Act says that the police have the power to immediately arrest, even without warrant, whenever something is being committed. So you don't need to say you want to wait until a resident electoral commissioner or the presiding officer in your particular unit gives you command. And then Section 29 of the same provision gives power for you to detain. For example, if somebody is a culprit, if you allow him to run away, you will be able to detain the suspect there. Even Section 60 of the Act gives you the power to apply immediate penalty there, so that justice delay will not be seen as justice denied. So the same thing if the police are overpowered, because I really pity the Nigerian police. Their number, if you take it carefully, about 400,000 policemen vis-a-vis 200 million Nigerians. Out of these 400,000, about half of them have been deployed to Mr. Somebody, Mr. Somebody. They are there guarding them as orderlies or whatever nomenclature you want to give them. And then the remaining 200, if you take them carefully, you discover that they have been deployed to corporate institutions of the government, the banks, the oil companies, major multinational corporations. You discover a greater number of them are there. So a little minute quantum of the Nigerian police will be on ground to even do the GC. And out of these, some of them will be on the streets, some of them will be at the relevant electoral places they are expected to be. So by the time you see this one, the police must be forced to invoke the provision of Section 217 to 219 by deploying or calling on other security agencies to come into assistance. So it should be seen as a wholesome collective phenomenon. If you are an elder, whether you are holding responsibility in the government or you are not a government officer, whether you are a religious leader, whether you are a traditional ruler, even if you are an elder by virtue of your age, you should put on yourself the position of statesmanship. Ensure that you have responsibility, onerous civic responsibility bestowed on you by your age, bestowed on you by the respect the community gives you, to ensure that you have the responsibility under sections 23 and 24 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to ensure security. Because without security, nothing goes on. That is the provision of the Constitution regarding section 24. Yes.
Let's leave it on that basis. What I pick something from what you said, and that is in terms of the sheer number of even aspirants or candidates in this polls. Shortly, we would go and speak to those numbers once they are ready. We'll be looking at the state-by-state breakdown of the candidates for this election. Now, let me come to Dr. Denny very briefly and look at this State Assembly. Apart from, of course, the local government councillors and chairmen, the State Assembly offers the younger generation an opportunity to perhaps to dip their toes and try their hands at legislative duties before eventually, of course, taking it to the national stage. Are you expecting perhaps an influx of younger brains, younger minds in this process, or is it business as usual?
Not necessarily. I'm not expecting that. I don't expect that one arm of government or any particular arm of government, for that matter, will be limited to any age group. Anybody that feels agitated, that feels a sense of commitment, a sense of mission, a sense of vision, can actually step forward. Sometimes it's not really about age; it's about the level of determination.
My question is stemming from the fact that a youth, being launched at the national stage might fall short because of issue of perhaps pedigree. But of course, you are identified in your local setting. First, for your standing in terms of perhaps your moral, uprightness, and then perhaps the responsibilities you've taken in the community.
I appreciate your question, really. But I'm just saying that it can be looked at from different dimensions, some of these things are actually not about age. It's about fixation. It's about our own mindset, thinking that you cannot be president of this country if in your 30s, in your 40s. The narrative is changed. It just changed over time. In those days, how old were our leaders? How old were they when they were president, when they were heads of states? Some of them were in their late 20s, in their 20s, in their 30s, and they did very well, really. Look at many of our achievements. Even the great Nigerian politicians, apart from Awolowo, Ahmadu Bello, and Azikiwe, how old were they when they were very active? So it's not really about age, it's just about determination. It's about what you want to do, what's your knowledge base, what sense of commitment do you have, Now, attention is shifting to youth in modern times because we think that they're being left behind in the scheme of things. Yes, youth is just one aspect of a social classification. There are so many other classifications. The women are also there. They can also, we can begin to make case for them the way we're talking about the youths, We can also begin to make case for people on the basis of income classification, on the basis of ethnicity, on the basis of tribe, religion, etc., etc. Different kinds of classifications that is. But the emphasis of the youth is appreciated, but we need to also be careful so as not to undermine other important sections. The youths they're not doing badly. You know, they've made a substantial statement in this electionary process. Quite a number of them came out to contest for the presidential election. Very daring move, you know, and many of them showed that they had a good grasp of the kind of solutions that we need to solving this nation, the country's problem. Even if they didn't go far, but they contributed to stimulating the electionary process, you know, and they offered very robust ideas on how we can take ourselves out of the woods. And they contributed in expanding our knowledge base on what the challenges, what our challenges are. So it was quite salutary. It's a beginning point, you know, and it's a statement they came out to make for the future. You know, but the problem we also have is that the many political parties, you know, create a kind of problem for electoral administration, especially when the results were being counted and released. You know, perhaps going forward, sometimes in the future, we should need to find a way of regulating this thing so that it can be a little more seamless, you know, a little more manageable, rather than what we had this last time. Okay, and again, saying that youth should have a starting point, you know, it's a political process. It might be difficult to place a hand on it by saying that, okay, because you are young, we should go and start from the level of level of a councillor. I mean, that's not, somebody might be young but matured at heart, very educated, very exposed, and could even be fit to become the president of the country. You know, we've seen some of these young people managing private enterprises, and they are doing fantastically well. You know, somebody might also be old and, you know, will fall short at the level of wisdom. You know, so what has age got to do with it? But that is not to say that we shouldn't appreciate what some of these sections can do, or that we should continue to marginalize the different sections that we are witnessing, that can be witnessed in any social setup, like the Nigerian one as well.
All right, let me come to, you know, Menasura, and, yes. You know, perhaps pick from your experience, yes, at this level. We discussed about the intensity at this level, you know, the sheer interest. But there have been some issues that may confuse the voter. We have governors going into elections today who started at a party, in midway defected to other parties, and then they are flying the flag of another one. And then crisscrossing all over the place. It leaves the voter confused as well. How does that, what signal does that give to our democracy in terms of ideology, in terms of standpoints, and basic concepts of leadership?
Some even a matter of few hours to election, you will see them withdrawing. They will say, I align myself to so candidate. I align myself to so candidate. This evolution of shadow political parties is the genesis of it. I call them shadow political parties.
This shadow is your quote.
Yes.
I need to write it down.
Yes, these shadow political parties that you have is the genesis of it. Even though Section 255 of the Electoral Act has given provision whereby after the election, any political party that performs dismal will be fizzled out. All these political parties, because in the first place, it is not healthy for you to just junk off number of political parties, 91 political parties. I wonder if there is anybody in Nigeria that can, on his own, from his own head, mention the names of these political parties, from the INEC chairman to whosoever is a stakeholder. Indeed, it's really not healthy. We should be able to really evolve seriously entrenched political parties. The function of political party, number one, is education of the citizenry, is the first one. The second function of political party is entrenchment of political structures across the length and breadth of the federation. A political association that do not have structures at the level of, say, senatorial districts, I don't see any relevance if you are not even extending it to state level. I don't see any relevance why such political parties should even be registered in the first place. But the whole of it is shaded because of the contractocratic nature of our bourgeois democracy. This is the reason why you see the springing up of so many political parties. They are interested in regarding what they will get. For example, there is a provision in the Electoral Act that any new political party at the point of formation should get some subvention or some grants from INEC. irrespective of whatever party, whether you are 100% strong, you have structures in all the wards in Nigeria, or whether you only have an office in a business center at the Federal Capital Territory, you get equal quantum of money for assistance. So many of them are just being registered simply because they want that grant to come to them. And then so many of them look at political parties as instruments of associating themselves with the major, real serious political parties, so that at the end, after the delivery of the victory of the election, they will be able to get some consolatory positions, so that they will be able to get positions that will help them enrich themselves. But fundamentally, political parties have respect for the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Section 221 to 229 talks about the activities of political parties. Under that, Section 224 clearly says that the activities of the political parties should go in tandem with Part 2 of the Constitution. Part 2 of the Constitution starts from Section 3. Section 3 talks about the structure of the governance system in Nigeria, or local government structures, the number of states, all the structures you have. So essentially, if you don't even have structures at the local government, at the state, you shouldn't even be qualified, irrespective of INEC having the power to register anyone that meets up the basic qualification. But that provision, if it is in conflict with the provision of the Constitution, the position of the Constitution as per Chapter 1, Section 1 of the Constitution is that it is void, it is null, void, and of no effect to the extent of its inconsistency or conflict with the provision of the Constitution. Now, from that Section 3 down to up to Sections 20-something, it's talking about national. In other words, cohesion. The need for you to really have footprint in all the nooks and corners of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. But one might want to say, yes,
for instance, you don't want to capture the, I mean, let's not use the word capture. You don't want to have footprints, you know, across the country. You just need, you know, perhaps let's put maybe 2, 3, 4 states that you feel that your party could do something, and then from there begin to spread to other parts of the country. You could have a starting point. If you have that concept, perhaps such ideas or ideals may not work in this.
That will be talking about nursery of political parties. It is not the responsibility of INEC or Nigeria to nurture a political party. It is not. If you are not strong to go into political contest, you shouldn't be recognized as a political party. You are going to contest.
Even if you have the ideals of good governance.
This is the largest democracy in Africa. This is the largest democracy in Black World. This is the most populous democracy in south of the Sahara. This is the most populous democracy in Black World. So we should not take it for levity. We shouldn't take cultural any association that do not have footprint across the lengths and breadth of Nigeria is existing in contradistinction with Section 3 of the Constitution, is existing in contradistinction with the provisions of Sections 15 subsections 2, 3, and 4, and Section 17 subsection 1, 2, and 3 that talks about nation. You cannot just have any political association and then claim that you are going to capture the DC. If you don't, even in advanced democracies, whether you take United States, UK, Canada, Germany, or anywhere you take, there are all these political parties, you know, but it's not everyone that is qualified to go into elections. You should be able to have the robust structures. Political parties that you are having greater number of them do not even send agents. You will monitor them today. They will not even send agents because they don't even have the DC. Their interest is not even. There are some political parties that fielded presidential candidates in the 2 weeks election that the candidates do not even have even a poster. So how can we?
Let me bring Dr. Adeni in.
Yes.
If I'm to, I don't. Let me confess that you know, Menasara Kogo has used the Constitution to defend his position with a lot of you know, robustness and depth. Yeah. But let's say this, and that is the fact that, you know, he has said, earn your place on the ballot. You agree?
Yeah, but you see, where it's good that it's making very copious references to the Constitution, and it's actually constitutional for as many parties to also be registered. It's lawful. It's coming after Supreme Court ruling, following the many pursuits, legal pursuits of the late Gadi Fawayemi. But it's not to say that it's not a weak point of the law. The fact that we're having 91 political parties, then about 140 something still on the cards, it's actually unworthy. It doesn't look clean. But I also want to recognize the fact that Nigeria is not going to be the only country where we're having this kind of experience. Yesterday, somewhere else, I referred to the experience of India. India is a very huge country. They have nearly 200 political parties, and somehow they are able to manage their own. Even Canada as well, they have many political parties, but somehow they are managing it well, and they are having the smaller parties cohabiting very well at the legislature with the controlling political party. United States is also very complicated. Multiple kinds of system. Yes, we have two major political parties, but there are so many other interest groups. And these interest groups are...
And they also give room for independent
candidacy. So they make their own mark in different ways. I think the challenge to us is really to find a way out of these kind of weakness, by not closing the space, but at the same time ensuring that the open space is functional. We do not want, unfortunately, people are taking advantage of it, like you said, because you think INEC will give you some money, and because you can use it to source for funds from places, or from individuals. That's the unfortunate aspect of our own, really. And this thing should just be a vehicle. It should be a bastion of ideological position. That's what political party is supposed to be, where you further some ideas, And now, as it were, I doubt if any of these parties even have a systematic body of ideas, because they are just vehicles for attainment of political position.
But there's a document you submit by the time you want it.
Document is anybody can submit a document.
I'm saying they have
I'm saying
yes. We have parties where the party chairman is the presidential candidate and also the director of strategy. But the issue, the issues here, are germane for our democracy. As he rightly said, some have been able to manage this process. Naturally, it has not advertised itself having 91 parties on the ballot for this, exercise. But what will be your advice going forward? How do you earn your place beyond the spread?
Yes.
What else could be done?
Yes. If, political parties, they are the seeds that germinate into a very serious bush of political kingdom. The number one thing we should try as much as possible is to nurture political parties as vehicle instruments for the development of democracy, first of all. And for us to do that, we have to really think of it along ideological divide. We don't have political parties based on ideology in Nigeria because of the capitalist system, unfortunately, we decided to imbibe. We don't have systems based on welfareism. We don't have a system based on socialism. We don't even have a system that is clearly coming to say, yes, I am for capitalism. We are just running systems based on confused assemblage of promises they want to do. So if we want to really have solid political parties that will really help our evolution of democracy, we should let it go from the grassroots upwards. In other words, every political party should be able to have an office at the world level, at the local government level, at the state level, zonal level, then to the federal level. But in Nigeria, we do it from the top. The requirement is you have an office at the federal capital territory, rather than having an office in my own village, for example. You should be able to have them. Even the bigger political parties do not have offices at polling centers at world level. Most of them that are having offices at the local government. So entrenchment of people's supremacy, that is the whole essence of democracy. Governance by the popular majority, by the citizenry, as per Section 14, subsection 1 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So we should go to the grassroots And then really people should be the ones to evolve it. People can be contributing 1 naira, 2 naira, up to maximum of say 50 naira, 100 naira. Some amount that will not be too much. Open register there. You know, I doubt if there's any of the political parties now that has membership register even. You don't even have it. It's just a matter of when, because they are deceiving themselves by the electoral regulations. When it is time for party convention, one money bag will go and pay for supposed 10 million registered. He will go and pay for the 2020 naira, and by virtue of which he will be able to get the tickets, to have the control over delegates. And as a result of which, he will be the one to dictate who emerges as the winner in respect of party primaries. That is the reason why we ended up having people coming up without the richness of quality or ideological belonging. So we should we should evolve political groups based on ideological leanings from the grassroots, whether you want to be a conservative party, whether you want to be a progressive party, whether you want to be a welfarist party, whether you want to be a capitalist party. We should from there now evolve it seriously for it to be germinated. And how do you do that? First of all, you should have clear assemblage of what you want to do for the citizenry. You should have it. It is from there you will now develop into what is called manifesto, and the robustness of the manifesto will now germinate that one into ideological lean. We don't have that one. So political parties should be sensitized, should be educated, that they have a responsibility to tailor a nation towards the Western bloc of the world or towards the Eastern bloc of the world, or in between the two. We have the responsibility to do that. But the way I now see, that is the reason why even when you take our foreign policy picture, for example, as per Section 19 of the Constitution, you will see us today, we are in the western side, tomorrow we are in the eastern side, next tomorrow we are in between the Asian tigers and the Arab world. This is the problem because we don't have clearly set of direction that we want our democratic progression to be tailored towards. Yes.
I agree with you. Let me first say that my director says that on your submission alone this morning, I should say good morning again. You have earned your coffee. All right, let's go on a short break. When we return, we'll be looking at it state-by-state analysis of today's election.
Nigeria is a very important country in Africa, and it's important to show to Africa that democracy is something really important.
Democracy has come. It has come to stay.
We are going to have a very peaceful, fast, transparent, and free and fair election.
We have a good hope for Nigeria.
It's a matter of transparency.
We need to vote our future.
I'm voting. I have my card here already.
I'm sure this is going to be a success at the end of the day by the special grace of God.
I just advise everyone to take it easy, be calm. It's a game.
No violence.
When we embrace peace, all of us will enjoy. We will enjoy the dividends of democracy.
I'm at Unit 6, Ward 4, Obanla in Akure South Local Government Area of Ondo State.
This is polling Unit 18 at Ungwardania with the local government area, Kano South.
With the distribution of these sensitive materials to all the polling units in Anambra State.
This is Ward 10, Unit 3 of Ijan in Bonny Local Government Area of Ekiti South Central District.
Ward 8 in Calabar Municipality of Cross River State.
Election has commenced here in Lagos State.
In Herogana, with the local government.
Welcome back to the Nigeria Decides studios, where we are, of course, getting ready to monitor the gubernatorial and state assembly elections in 29 states nationwide. Of course, you know that you are on to the largest television network in Africa, and as such, of course, our footprints are completely around the country and the continent, so we'll be giving you on-the-spot assessments. Our reporters are going to venue now and to make sure that they bring our reports to us. Before we went on the break, you know, Minister Kugu was talking about ideology, was talking about issue of moving, gradually getting your set of ideas, articulating your ideas to the voting populace, you know, in a way, you know, unfolding your plans and, you know, concepts before beginning to rush to INEC for registration one and then, you know, struggling for perhaps the stipends that will trickle down.
Very well. Valid point, no doubt, you know, but we also need to appreciate that not all the political parties could be tarred with the same brush. You know, some of them were actually serious, even if they were not that popular. Even if the parties themselves were not that articulate with respect to their program, some individuals on the platform of those parties were very articulated. They were very articulate. They were very focused on what they wanted to do, you know, and you actually liked their process of ideation. You know, I remember Kingsley Moghalu. I cannot even remember his political party, for instance, but his ideas were very robust, you know. To a very large extent, too, sometimes you like the poise of there's another person there, the motivational speaker in Lagos, you know, some young guys, Bengal Hashim, they were very robust, they understood the economy very well. And even Omoyele Sowore, to shock you, came with some interesting ideas, irrespective of his methodology. You know, then, you know, there's another young man in Lagos, ANN, I want to remember his name, Fela Drotoye. You know, many of these guys, former deputy governor of the central bank from Nasarawa State as well. Obadiah Melafair. These people came with sophisticated ideas. And you appreciate them, really. Some of them even wrote books. Tope Fashua, for instance, came up with publications, including Kingsley Moghalu. You know, so they were very robust in their articulation, you know. And it's actually interesting to see that we are getting to this level. So that's why I said we shouldn't just tar them, all of them with the same brush. Some of them had their own different motive. You know, they probably came and to see what they could gain at the level of personal aggrandizement, you know, or material things, or trying to get some prebends from some sections of people, you know. But the few ones that tried actually did very well. So ideology does not grow overnight. It comes, of course, like he alluded to, from programs. From programs, you're able to articulate your position, and the person consuming it, the person reading it, can see your line of departure and your destination as well. Can see where you're going to, whether to the right of the center or to the left of the center, or whether you want to stay in the center. But let's not forget that the days of abstract, drastic, market ideological polarization is getting over. We're not no longer in the bipolar world of those days where we have the Western Bloc and the Eastern Bloc. You know, it's no longer that strict anymore, even though we still have divisions at the level of ego. Okay, for instance, where will you really place China? You could say China is in the East, but China of course, it's neo-capitalist, so to say. Even Russia, you know. So the division are no longer as sharp as it used to be. That's why you understand with Nigeria, if we try to be a little to the right and a little to the left to make to get the two to the best from the two sides.
Without being confused.
Without being confused. And we have also said at the level of foreign policy that we are in those days that we are a non-aligned movement, and beyond that, we also came up with the concept of concert of medium powers under Babangida, Bolaji Akinyemi. So what it means is that we are not aligned to any section in terms of ideology, but at the level of economics, it is also good to experiment. And what do we mean? What do we mean when we say we're experimenting? To take the best out of all the ideologies, you know, and try to propel our economy and our system from the doldrum that we are in. So at our level, as a developing country, as an African country, it's going to be dangerous for us to be aligned. So it's better to pull the best from all the sections.
All right, let's speak to the numbers very briefly. Let's speak to the numbers. Let's look at what we have for these elections. Like we said, 29 states are up for grabs today. Let's see what we have in terms of the number. You were talking about the sheer number, talking about Nasara Kogo.
Yes.
Abia State has 32 candidates vying for the government house today. Adamawa has 29 vying for the government house in Yola. Akwa Ibom has 45 people interested in the government house there in Uyo. Bauchi has 31. Benue, 33 people are interested in the government house in Makurdi. Borno has 32 people vying for the gubernatorial seat there. Of course, Cross River has 26. Delta has 50 people vying to be governor. Ebonyi has 37. Enugu has 42. Gombe has 32. Imo has 70. It's almost as many as the presidential election. Yeah. And then we have Jigawa with 19. That's the list so far. Kaduna has 38. Kano 55. Katsina has 18. Kebbi has 31. Kwara 35. Lagos 45. Nasarawa 29. Niger 31. In Ogun State, 41 people are interested in the government house. In Okelewu, I think, in Abuja, there. Oyo State has 42. Plateau has 24. Rivers 64. And then we have Sokoto with 51. Taraba with 30. Yobe with 13. And then Zamfara with 42. So overall, Yobe has the least with 13 people vying for the state. Imo has 70, the highest number, and Rivers has 64. What does this mean? Let me start with Doctor.
Yeah, if you look at it, with the cursory look, you see that about 5 states have over 50 number governorship aspirants. You know, out of those 5 states, you know, 3 are actually security flashpoints. Okay, which goes to tell you the kind of the political temperature obtainable in those states. You know, you expect that there will be much more tension. You expect that the contest, the race will be much more vociferous, and you want to advise the security agencies to pay attention to those states. And it's also interesting. It's easy to confirm as well that they've mentioned those states have shown signs in the past that they are prone to violence. They are prone to upheavals. You know, so it's an attraction for security attention, really, so that we can have peace at the end of the day. But what does it mean when we're having many aspirants like this? It just means that, yes, we have many political parties. I think it's an invitation for us to review the criteria for enlisting in a political contest, you know, because it's going to give us issue of manageability. How do you manage this humongous amount of candidates? And we have to consider these while also reviewing, while also being mindful of the need not to clog the political space for potentials, for possibilities to emerge. You know, because all these things have to be done in context so that at the end of the day we can come out better for it.
It is easy to confuse the elections we are going into this weekend. I mean, one would have almost confused the Imo situation as if it's the presidential polls itself. With 70 guys coming out to be to take over from the governor there, Rocha Sokorocha. Several other people are vying for this position. 70 now.
70. Really, the number will end up confusing rather than convincing the electorates. Because, like you were analyzing before we decide to go into the graphics, those progressive materials at the presidential level, if they had integrated themselves into one robust political party, they would have made a more meaningful impact rather than dividing themselves into different things. All this you are seeing is not so much the number that is. I'm not even worried about the number. But the consequential effect of this number, that is my problem. Because quality-wise, how many are really gubernatorial materials among the candidates? How many? Most of them, you discover, you will not mention more than 3 political parties that are real parties standing there. Recently, about two days ago, in almost all the states, you discover so many candidates here have now decided suddenly to resolve themselves into the campaign materials. Serious contestants. Yes, even Kaduna, so many places, you discover many contestants, they will say, all of us have now withdrawn and have aligned ourselves to the distance. So it's just a matter of getting themselves there as candidates in order to elevate themselves to a particular status in event of political bargain. That is just the reason why you see so many of them. They want it as the benchmark for political bargain regarding what they should be given aftermath of the election. That is the way I look at it. So I'm not so much worried about the number, but I'm worried simply because the number will end up confusing the electorates. By the time you give them this they will find it difficult.
Let me give you an opportunity to sip your coffee a bit. But Doctor, you made your point in terms of ideology and all. But when you look at how cumbersome the process could be for the voter, especially let's imagine an elderly person who perhaps is using his glasses to look at 17 names across a very big, bogus, ballot sheet. And then before you get to where you are thinking you are confused, perhaps you might be tired and just punch anyone you want so that you can perhaps be given the opportunity to quickly return home. Let's look at that. After that, we have Rivers, which has been, in the news for different reasons, is the second highest after Imo. That means again, in terms of logistics, in terms of security, that will also be a challenge.
Yeah, it's very okay to note that, actually. And don't forget that it's established that we are a largely illiterate country. Our literacy level is just above 30, evening up to 40%. So it's going to be a problem for voters, really. And in the last presidential election, there was a particular party, that came third, mysteriously, because the name looks like PDP. I think it's PCP.
Okay.
So I think people were inadvertently voting for PCP instead of PDP. And maybe because they were fatigued or they were not literate enough to differentiate between the two, the names were close, the colors, the logo were very close. So the man, one way or the other, just got a point on the basis of that error.
PCP will be at pains to tell you that they also worked.
Well, it's just a conjecture.
Another thing to add.
It's a conjecture we are making, but
another thing. This number we are seeing is a call for INEC to really standardize the yardstick for political contest. It's really a call for us to, because with this number you are having, if a professor is even confused with the number, to the extent he is needing ruler and illumination for him to be able to understand the one sheet it is. How about some poor illiterates that will go there and be given all this, this and they will find it difficult to differentiate political parties whose logo is head of a guinea fowl and the head of this flamingo. They will find it difficult to even differentiate at the end of
problem,
it.
really.
So we should standardize. Agreed, you can exist, but it is not every political party that should be qualified to contest. There should be yardstick of standard that you should attain before you should be qualified to go into contest. If we must register all junks of political associations as political parties, then they should be given the time to nurture and really germinate into maturity before they should be allowed.
But I actually know the difference between the head of a guinea fowl and the head of a chicken. But the point has been made.
Yeah.
Moving on now, the feelers are, especially with what happened in Akwa Ibom. Before the presidential election, Issa Alangwa in Abia had its INEC office raised to the ground with PVCs burnt. We were assured that we will not see that again. A few days later, it was Plateau State that witnessed same. Now, after all the campaigns and what we have learned from the first round of elections, yesterday it was in Akwa Ibom.
Yes.
It seems as if while the security agents are perfecting their strategy, thugs too are getting ready to also perfect their own strategy. But before I let you react to that, I will still allow you to take more coffee, because Delta is ready with a report that could also help us set the stage in our projections into today's election.
Good.
Delta State was carved out of the former Bendel State on August 27, 1991. The state was created following agitations for the creation of a separate distinct state by the people of the old Delta province, the Urobo, Ishekiri, Isoko, Ijo, and Anioma. The then military president, General Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida, retired, created the state using the name Delta, advanced by Niger Delta region, and Asaba, a prominent town within the Anioma axis, as capital. The proposed capital was a virgin land, an Anioma city in the heart of the two constituent divisions that evolved to become the Anioma area, which is Ukwani and Anioma. Delta State was once integrated in the Midwestern State from 1963 to 1976, and later Bendel State from 1976 to 1991. The Bendel coined from the old Benin and Delta province of Western region to reflect the integration of Benin and Delta provinces. Geographically, Delta State is located between longitude 5.00 and 6.45 east of Greenwich Meridian and between latitude 5.00, 6.30 north of the equator. The state has an estimated land area of 7.440 square kilometers, roughly one-third of which is either swampy or waterlogged or both. Delta has a unique tropical climate that enables it simultaneously savour the best of rainy and dry seasons. It is bordered in the north by its twin sister, Edo, in the east by Anambra, in the south by Rivers and Bayelsa states, and in the west by the huge Atlantic Ocean, into which the majestic River Niger, one of the four oldest rivers of the ancient world, empties its water. The population of Delta, according to 2006 National Population Census, is 4,098,391. Delta is ethnically diverse, with 4 linguistic stock of people and 7 languages between them. Majority of the inhabitants are Christians, with few subscribers of African traditional religion. Delta has 25 local government areas split into 3 senatorial districts of North, Central, and South. Each returns 3 representatives and 1 senator to the National Assembly. All 25 local government areas have 29 State House of Assembly seats, 1 for each local government, save for Ugeli North, Burutu, Isoko South, and Wari, which returns 2 members each. What is Delta State's political awareness like, and what has it achieved so far?
You can see that the political atmosphere is growing, is getting mature, is evolving. If you also notice, there's less acrimony, there's less violence in our political space today. That's because quality people have come to play the politics.
Since the creation of Delta State, she has been governed or administered by 11 leaders, military administrators, or civilian governors. First was Group Captain Luke Chijuba Ocholo, August 27, 1991 to January 2, 1992. He handed over to late Olorogu Felix Ibru, who left office after the General Sani Abacha coup on November 17, 1993. On 20th November 1993, Alhaji Abudkari Shehu, the then Commissioner of Police, was appointed the temporary administrator till December 12th of the same year. Colonel Basi Asuko took over as military administrator. Asuko left to Edo State September 26, 1994, and Air Commodore Ibrahim Kefas retired, superintended over the state till till August 27, 1996. Colonel John David Dong was next until August 1998, when Navy Captain Walter Fegabo took over till May 29, 1999. During the transitional regime of General Abdul Salami Abubakar, he handed over to the elected civilian governor, Chief James Onanefe Ibori. Chief Ibori served 2 consecutive terms, 29th May 1999 to May 28, 2003, and May 29, 2003 to May 29, 2007. Dr. Emmanuel Ewetaudoa became the governor of Delta State from May 29, 2007 to November 10, 2010. His election was annulled on November 10, 2010 by the Court of Appeal in Benin. A fresh election was ordered, thus ushering in an acting governor in the person of Right Honorable Prince Sam Obi, November 10, 2010 to January 10, 2011. After the fresh election was conducted and won, Dr. Emmanuel Udoa resumed office, completed his 4th term, and also won a 2nd tenure till May 29, 2015. Senator Ifeanyi Arthur Okowa is the current governor of Delta State and is in the race for a 2nd bid this 2019.
Many thanks from Delta State, a brief history. I will be getting more from different states. That is Delta State as I described them. It is a labyrinth on water, very difficult to access some places on election day. So perhaps the electioneering papers and whatever, you have to send them before time so that the results can come. And there are states like this, especially the coastal areas, where to get to some zones is very, very difficult. So INEC, of course, must be looking at logistics to make sure that that is done, and then we begin to get our results as fast as possible.
Yes, INEC said that they have finished delivery at the level of the state as of yesterday. And the further disbursement to the relevant places is going on. In fact, INEC gave assurance that by 8 o'clock this morning, every polling center, the elections will simultaneously commence. We have that assurance. So I'm sure they must have taken into cognizance all those topographical differences and the such type of places, and efforts should be done in advance rather than waiting until the fire brigade dead end of the district. And then regarding your earlier question, this setting ablaze of an office.
Yes.
I'm not surprised, sincerely speaking, because penultimate the presidential election, whether I think it was in Osun State, Osun or Ondo State, INEC office was burnt there. INEC's office was burnt.
Is Alangwa also in Abia?
Yes.
And
Abia and so many other places. As of now, I did not hear of any name of somebody already incarcerated of that. So what are we saying? So what are we saying? Not even detained. We can talk about detention, for example. Section 81 of the Electoral Act prohibits the possibility of any thuggery and say that whatever you do, even this type of setting ablaze, it should go beyond issue of electoral offenses. Because Section 2A of the Anti-Terrorism Act predicates that anything that will disrupt the peace of the nation is terrorism. And by virtue of which there are stiffer penalties depending on the quantum of the criminality that can even lead somebody to even death penalty. It depends on the quantum of the distance. So we shouldn't allow this thing. You know, criminal happening is just like a small matches of this thing. You lighten it like that, you can easily quench it easily. But if you allow it to germinate, it can burn a whole city or even a whole country, which will require like ocean water for you to kill it. So we shouldn't be taking criminality for levity. Law enforcement agencies should be up and doing, and then by virtue of Section 150 of the Electoral Act, INEC should be prepared to now assemble and begin to prosecute some culprits. We shouldn't be waiting for until when there are cries from international quarters or from any serious group, then before we now begin to say we are going to prosecute. We don't want to hear we are going to prosecute. We want to see convictions. We want to see prosecutions and convictions instantly. Crime is a crime, and we should not in any way allow it. Remember, Section 14 of Section 2 says security and welfare of the citizen is a primary, which means is the smallest responsibility of the government. So if we cannot do that,
fundamental.
It's a fundamental. It's a fundamental. So we shouldn't take any issue of security. All these things, there are accused people that are normally arrested at the end of it. But you will not hear anything. Those that perpetrated violence in 2015, up to now, I don't know of how many have been convicted. I don't know of how many are languishing in prison. I don't know of how many are still in police custody. So we shouldn't allow laissez-faire attitudes towards criminality.
He made an allusion, a metaphorical allusion to the matchbox and lighter. Should we begin to tell people to, remove their pockets before they come to the polling units? Because it seems to me as if lighter and matchbox now are even more important than thumbprint during election.
I think there are different ways to look at this thing, but I'll just limit it to two. One is just to look at it from the micro level and say that people should be checked before they approach polling units to be sure that there are no dangerous weapons in their hands, And of course, these things are done ordinarily. Nobody will approach the polling station with a gun or with a knife ordinarily, because security agencies are there. At the same time, you expect that other dangerous weapon that lighter matches will not be on anybody's body coming to the polling station. But again, that's at the individual level, These are expectations, natural expectations. You are expecting people to be ideal in the way they behave, expecting voters to be rational. You're expecting citizens to be decent, to take the electioneering process, to take their right to vote, as an opportunity for them to reassert their citizenship, to take advantage of that occasion and celebrate democracy, and if you are doing that, which means that you avoid violence, you avoid anything that will hurt the other person, or anything that can hurt the process, including matches and lighter and all of that, But that's at the level, at the micro, marginal, minimal level, the expectation you have on the part of the citizen. The other one is to look at it from the general perspective and say that, is something not missing in the system if we still think that violence should be an option. Violence should be a way for us to achieve our desires, our electoral desires, because whoever is doing this thing is not, those who do perpetrate these violent acts are not acting for themselves. They're acting for political leaders, for some political leaders. And some of these political leaders may not even go directly to tell them, do this or do that, but they just watch their body language. Okay? They watch their body language and perpetrate these acts, on behalf of their leaders. So perhaps we need to also take a holistic view at it and see what is it in our system that is making people to be these vociferous about electioneering contest. And the already answer we can find to it is the fact that it is the quickest access to material prosperity, which is very wrong. Okay? Again, we need to make the political offices less attractive, We need to make it impossible for people to progress materially only on account of holding political office. Okay, it's been done in other parts of the world. We can also do it in this part. But what is the way to do it? How do we get it done? Make sure that infrastructures and facilities are working very well. Ensure that health facilities, educational facilities are all there. So if all these things are there, there will be no attraction to steal, to pilfer public resources, because what you are doing these things for most of the time,
creation, especially
that's fine.
Quality jobs.
Yeah, when they are doing this because they want to stand on behalf of the states. They want to be a local government, a state government, and a federal government unto themselves through public resources. And besides doing this for themselves, they also want to distribute this wealth even illegally, to the populace. So there's a systemic problem, which can be dealt with through quality leadership. We've had instances of these, and sometimes the other time we were here together, we agreed that we have flashes of good leadership. There are no doubt, isolated cases, but they are very few.
Exception, not the rule.
Yes, but what we need is that we need more of the few so that we can get to the desired destination.
All right, you spoke about, earlier you were talking about the fact that INEC said it was ready with all the materials in those remote areas and places where access is not easily, places are not easily accessible. But we've known this over time that in most states, there are local governments that the results come last.
Yes.
Sometimes it's almost deliberate because they are swing votes somehow, swing, locations somehow. Especially when we talk about the coastal areas or hilly areas in some parts of the north, east and whatever. You hear something like the huge votes will just come and obliterate whatever you had in the past, and as if it's deliberately being kept back.
Yes.
In times past, we've had a situation where from the coastal areas that some of the ballot boxes did not make their way to the headquarters, and when they were asked why, somebody was also blaming some crocodiles to have eaten up some ballot boxes. But why this trend? Why this trend that, some of these remote areas, you just come and you now see all kinds of figures and all that?
It's a political strategy. Politicians in Nigeria, anyway, they have the liberty to design whatever strategy because the ultimate objective is to win. The ultimate objective is to win. And it is the responsibility of INEC, for example, under Section 223 of the Electoral Act, there are rules and regulations guiding the conduct of political parties. During the presidential election, for example, I was still able to spot some political activities by some political parties. INEC did not penalize anybody on that. We should be able to be seeing penalties. For example, even the rules of engagement given by the either INEC representatives or the representatives of the poll, there should be deadline within which submission should be made to the returning centers. There should be deadline. Otherwise, you will discover that these are the reasons why you have delay in announcement of results. And when you delay announcement of result, you create unnecessary apprehension within the political enclave. And that apprehension will give room to people going about with fake news through this social media. Before you know it, fake results will be, and you know the nature or the sociology of the heart. The heart takes anything that is closest to it. So whatever the heart is seeing constantly, somebody is sending from 20 different sources, you are seeing one similar posting that this is the result, this is the result. At the end of it, after people have already exhausted their patience of waiting for the authority to formally announce the result, when the result is announced, some of them will be disenchanted, will be disappointed, say this is not the true result. What we have already gotten is the authentic result. We are going to work on it. Before you know it, only God knows the type of violence that will spring up. So INEC should be able to now have limitation of time within which results should now be submitted from one stage or the other, and should be able to be expeditious in announcement of results, so that that delay will not unnecessarily call apprehension, which will be negative in the polity. Agreed, there are areas of typographical difficulties, the areas where there are hills, where there are water, but all this is because of the refusal of the political stakeholders. In other words, the politicians, to imbibe electronic voting. If to say we agreed on electronic vote, you don't need to wait for 2, 3, 4 days
just punch and
before you get results.
Punch and we see the number.
Exactly. You don't need to wait for all those things. It will be transparent, and it will reduce unnecessary delay, and it will reduce even acrimony, because you know you have been gallantly defeated. So you have no option than to accept the defeat magnanimously, rather than just going into feeding lawyers with money to be going on technicalities for election.
My producer was saying that something about punch and vote. Yes. Now, let me ask you, Dr. Adeni, we had a story from Oshogbo and a report about the distribution of sensitive materials, when they were received and when they were distributed. Journalists were barred from covering that in Oshogbo and maybe a few other states. Does that help the transparency of the process, or how should we go about it? Because that might lead to suspicion as well.
Yeah, I think you've asked the question and you've somewhat provided leads to the answer.
Because I'm a journalist.
That's right, and I think it's actually...
We wanted to help us do our job.
It's very unfortunate that that act actually happened, and that if it went to other states, it's actually very unfortunate, because journalists ordinarily have a constitutional role, and he will attest to this, which is the right. They have the right to inform. Other than that, they are also to create awareness, provide education, and sometimes to entertain. And at very critical moments like these, where we have a national event, a national exercise, the average citizen relies heavily on the journalist, for information, for education, and for awareness on what's going on. So if the officials there think for one reason or the other that they shouldn't witness the arrival of material, the time it arrived, and the way it was being distributed, it's very unfortunate. It raises room for suspicion, and it's actually needless, because traditional media, who will have gone there anyway, are serious-minded people ordinarily, expectedly, and there's no reason why they should be prevented from witnessing it, And going forward, I think officials need to be well advised so that suspicion will not be raised. These are not the times where we need suspicion. These are the times when we need transparency, openness. And like you alluded to, we're in an age of plural media.
I think by way of clarification, we need to exonerate INEC from this process because they actually invited the journalists.
Yeah.
But being the CBN compound, perhaps the law enforcement agents there thinking that the CBN, because of the, structure,
and I was going to say that
allow
sometimes.
But this process is the Nigerian process. It's, we are all stakeholders, so perhaps they should have given access.
Yes, sometimes some of these officials who are implementing this thing are doing it with every due respect, maybe because of lack of understanding. Sometimes they might just want to be overzealous. They may not actually be meaning any harm. So that's why they actually need to be guided sometimes too. It's
let's get a legal interpretation from him.
Yes.
What my director believes you must have something to say about this.
You mean regarding the annex of?
Yes.
Yes. Section 77, subsection 1 and 2 of the Electoral Act imposes penalty on any custodian of materials that deliberately decide to dispense insufficient materials, up to a maximum period of 2 years imprisonment and 2 million naira fine, or both, depending on the discretion of the judge, both the presiding judge. Now, the media, as per the provision of the Constitution, Section 22 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, predicates the power of the media to be the eye of the citizenry. That is why the media is called the fourth estate of the realm. In fact, without the media, no developmental initiative can succeed anywhere in the world. Anywhere in the world. The media is the impartial umpire in between the authorities that will conduct the election, the stakeholders, and the public. The public is an omnibus terminology. The media is there to fill up the distance, to be the distance of the public. And without even the media,
promote the agenda.
We are seeing, because there is nothing like, I don't like this terminology, traditional media. I don't like it. The media is this very one we know, the correct authoritative instrument of education, enlightenment, and publicity, like NTA, like all other established this. All the other...
especially the NTA.
Yes, the recognized ones that have registered with the authorities are the ones we know. All the other ones are just, what do you call this? The mediocres of the play. They are not really the media.
All right,
we should discourage the recognition. So the media has a very important responsibility to be the eye of the public, to be able, under the dictum of their investigative journalism, to be able to report, say, so, this thing is inadequate, INEC, build up, do it. There is also potentiality of security threat. Security agencies rush and tame the situation before it escalates.
Right.
And then you'll be able to say, so number of, there is voter apathy. For example, NOA and the political parties, do the best you can to mobilize people to come up at the next election. So these are...
I think the point has been made, and of course, there's also need for information sharing, so that perhaps the security people at the various CBN could also understand why the media people are supposed to be there. Let's look at an aspect. We have to give credit to INEC for the technologies that it has brought into this, process. There has been the card reader. But in terms of the violence that has been, put into this process, in this the first round and now the second round that we're about to go, it seems as if we might even need a conscience reader, of political, structure, figures across the state, because the intent is to, as they say, capture power at all costs.
Yes, and even this card reader, most of the problems associated with the card reader has to do with either inadequacy of the training given to the INEC officers, or their deliberate refusal to be attentive during the training. Most of these card readers is something you discover. There are instances whereby the INEC officers do not even know how to use the card reader during the last two weeks election. Do not even know how to use the card reader. So the political party agents there exploited that window of lapse to their advantage. And you'll discover that in some places, it is as a result of that, you have all these problems. But the most important thing here to say is that the INEC, the political parties, the security agents, the electorates, everybody should really look at the government. I mean, the nation. The nation. It is, first of all, fundamentally a national service. As per sections 23, 24 of the Constitution, like I said, is fundamentally a national service. So whatever you will do, you should put the interest of the nation over and above the interest of your political association. And that is the import of section 15, subsection 3, 4, and 5 of the Constitution. And clearly, section 14, subsection 3 and 4 talks about the need for you to put national interest over and above your political interest, either as a political party or even as a voter. If you take position of section 17, 1, 2, 3, the interest of the nation is over and above, is supreme. So we should put the national interest, we should look at this as a window of opportunity for us to partake in the history of developing Nigeria to the next level.
Let me come to Doctor. Before I come to you, I understand that something is ready. We have a report getting ready for us all the way from Katsina. There's a spotlight on that state. We will be zeroing in on that state, and then perhaps that will also lead us into our next set of discussions.
Katsina State, northwest of Nigeria, was carved from the northern half of Kaduna State in 1987. The state is bordered by the Republic of Nigeria to the north and by Jigawa and Kano states to the east, Kaduna State to the south, and Zamfara State to the west. Farming is the main economic activity in the state, where crops such as peanuts, cotton, sorghum, and maize are among the major produce. Other economic activities include livestock rearing. Most of its people own cattle, sheep, goats, and hide skin trade has a historic tradition in the region. The main population are the Muslim Hausa Fulani, whose few Maguzawas to the south, and specks of Kanuri and Bugaji mixed with the other population. The 2006 population census in Nigeria put Katsina State's population at slightly over 5.8 million people, making it the 5th highest populated state in the country. During the sub-Saharan trade, the city, according to Wikipedia, was known to be one of the most vibrant and strong commercial centers and was believed to be the strongest of the Hausa kingdoms in terms of commerce, trade, and craft. The city's history of Western-style education dates back to the early 1950s, when the first middle school in all of northern Nigeria was established.
The college, as I have said, started with an enrollment of 50 students throughout northern Nigeria. So many prominent Nigerians attended this college, like Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, the first Prime Minister of Nigeria, Sir Ahmadu Bello, the Sultana of Sokoto, the first Premier of Northern Region, Aliyu Makaman Bidda, Sir Kashim Ibrahim, Abubakar Okene, Alhaji Musa Yar Adwa, the late Tafidan Katsina, among others.
One important symbol to the Katsina status in education is the famous Guber minaret, built in the 18th century to serve as a learning center, worship, and a defensive tower which served as an early warning structure against invading forces.
The minarets also serve as a civilian tower for sighting enemy invaders as they approach Katsina Juar and Katsina communal law. This historical landmark portrays the civilization of craftsmanship of 14th century inhabitant.
As indicated in the early history of Katsina, the state continued to play a major role in the political leadership of the northern region and Nigeria as a whole. Among many prominent personalities and leaders, Katsina State produced late General Hassan Usman Katsina, who was the governor of the northern region from 1966 to 1967. The state is also the only state in Nigeria that produced two democratically elected presidents, late President Umar Musa Yar'Adua and the current President Muhammadu Buhari, who was also a military head of state. The current Katsina State is characterized by three senatorial zones: the Katsina Central, Katsina North, and Katsina South senatorial zones. Each of these senatorial districts is distinct in terms of their demography, economic, and political influence in the state. From the Katsina North senatorial district, Daura stand out because of its history in northern Nigeria and Hausa kingdoms in particular. The emirate is referred to as the 7 true Hausa states, known as the Hausa Bakwai. Legend has it that Bayajidda, also known as Abu Yazid, a son of the king of Baghdad, came to Daura and killed a petish snake at the famous Kusubu well.
As the well was discovered, people were happy then, but unfortunately at a certain time along the way, a menacing snake known as Sarki occupied the well to the extent that it prevented the inhabitants from getting water on a daily basis.
An action that endeared him to the reigning Daura queen, who eventually married him and bore him the 7 Hausa rulers of Daura, Kano, Biram, Katsina, Zazzau, Gobir, and Rano. These kingdoms were ruled by the descendants of Bayajidda's sons. Daura stretched across the border of present-day Nigeria and the Republic of Niger. Daura town in the 9th and 10th century became a caravan center for salt and potash from the Sahara Desert, and for cloth, slaves, leather, and agricultural produce from the south. But it never gained the political and military prominence of Katsina. The southern part of Katsina State, which stretched from the southern bank of River Karadwa to Sabwa, is referred to Katsina South Senatorial District, with its headquarters at Funtua. The region is often described as the food basket and the cash cow of Katsina State because of its rich agricultural land and vibrant economic activities. Funtua is very strategic because of its location on the main transit route between the far north and the southern part of Nigeria. This strategic location made Funtua to become like a magnet for diverse people from all over Nigeria to come and settle and made Funtua their home. One other factor that contributed towards Funtua's economic advantage was a rail line that passed through the city going to Kauranamoda in Zamfara State. This advantage made the previous administration to designate Funtua as the host for one of the inland dry ports to be established in Nigeria. The cosmopolitan nature of Funtua made it a very important economic nerve center of Katsina State. The historical and economic differences of the three senatorial districts that constitute Katsina State made it what it is today, a very unique and strong state in northwestern Nigeria.
You're back to the Nigerian Decide Studio, Nigeria Decide Studios of the Nigerian Television Authority. We will be joining our zones as the program progresses, of course, to give you on-the-spot assessment of the gubernatorial and state assembly elections. I will be giving you that. I understand that Onagiye Fine Face has traveled over the labyrinth on water, is in Bonny, out there. Onagiye, tell us a bit about what is happening out there in Bonny. Tell us what the situation in Bonny there.
But I can watch it slowly.
All right, we are still trying to establish contact with Onagiye Fine Face out there in Bonny. Will be giving us reports from there. When he's ready, we will return to Onagiye Fine Face. But of course, we have been able to see his fine face already this morning. Let's look at this, developments across the country. We already showed your state because Minister Akogo is from Katsina State and he's been giving us, background. Elections like this, it gives an opportunity for the country, the indigenes to come together, understand one another, first at the local level, and then through programs like this, you also appreciate the vastness, the sheer size of a country like ours. How can we maximize it? Instead of we seeing the Achilles heels of logistics alone, how can we maximize our size, our democracy, and use ourselves perhaps as a shining example for the rest of the continent that this is the way to go?
Yeah, very well. I think you're actually hitting it. It's an electionary period is like the festival of democracy. That point has been severally made. It's a time for us to be reminded of our citizenship, to be reminded of our right as nationals, and for us to have an increased sense of belonging, even those who are abroad, those who are not ordinary residents in the country, long for home in periods of election. That's why they have also been advocating for diaspora voting. So it's always a momentous occasion, and it's somewhat a time for bonding. You see people talking from different sections of the country and hitting the same point, around the need for perfection. You can imagine what happened at the time when.
All right, Doctor, we will come back to you. Like I told you, of course, it's the largest television network in Africa. And just to show you exactly how we prepared for this, right now in Lagos, Jennifer Igwe is ready. Jennifer, tell us what is happening in Lagos. Jennifer, tell us what is happening in Lagos. Jennifer, tell us what is happening in Lagos. Jennifer, tell us.
Ikoyi and its environs are at this collation center on Awolowo Road, Ikoyi, getting materials for their various polling centers. Now, some of them have already collected their materials and have loaded them into buses. The buses have already left. We still have one waiting to take some of the staff still inside, getting their ballot papers and all the items they will need for their polling center. Now, this area is a crucial one for this election process because there will be many polling centers for people to cast their ballot today in Ikoyi and its environs, and this McQueen Center off Bodilon Road, Ikoyi, is a crucial one. And if you remember, the last time it was at this center, but later on in the course of the day, there will also be a polling center in front of it. It was this area the last time that people accused someone of snatching a ballot box, which was not true, because we later discovered it was false information. So this is one area that we will also keep our focus on today. Back to the studio.
Thank you, Jennifer. In spite of the fact that the allegation was not true, just keep your eye on some of those ballot boxes. Let's come back to your, you were making a point before.
Yeah, I was talking about the election period being a time for bonding, for a time for an increased sense of community, you know, an increased sense of belonging, because that's when the citizens' self-esteem is boosted once more. You know, and it gives a good sense of association too, even on a national level and sometimes on a planetary scale, because even those who are outside are much more interested in what is happening in the country of origin. You know, and if you imagine what happened when the postponement of the presidential election was initially done, you could see this general sense of resentment by the average Nigerian citizen, from Kano to Lagos, from Port Harcourt to Sokoto, and everywhere, you know. There was this sense of oneness. It reminds us of the time where football matches are being played, and you will hardly find it difficult to differentiate the different ethnic origin of citizens, you know. So it's always a momentous occasion, and it's a time that government leaders can also take advantage of in reasserting the sense of oneness, the sense of unity, you know, in the face of perennial challenge of bringing us together as a people, you know. And we have to really be happy that we are once more witnessing this milestone on the consecutive, you know, the 5th in 20 years or so, or thereabout. And it's actually a thing of joy that we've been consistent at it, and all hopes are high that will continue at this level. And we've made this point before, that the standard of 2019 election is not the standard that we witnessed in 2015, neither was 2015 the standard that we witnessed in 2011, just like 2011 was not the standard that we saw in 2007, or 2007 was also higher than 2003 in terms of quality, okay? So we are growing at these levels, you know, especially at the level of characterization of the election. Characterization, I mean, the way we describe it. Now there's emphasis on free, fair, credible, and we're even going to add transparent election. You know, we didn't see these 12 years ago. 12 years ago, we were just concerned about succession, and the processes were just shabby, to the extent that a sitting president who even benefited from it had to constitute a panel to review it. Okay, but that's not that was not the experience now. Yes, there are imperfections at the moment. Yes, there are contestation, there are arguments around the results and all of that. People are resorting to the judiciary. It's okay, but the point here is that, you know, the kind of bitterness, the kind of differences that we are having now, it's not as serious as what we used to have in the days of old. And we're expecting to outgrow even some of these differences that we'll talk about, really. You know, there will come a time where people will not be bothered about pursuing their so-called rights in the judiciary. You know, judiciary will be left to do other things, really, at some point, because there are so many reasons why you can contest a process. I remember the election between George Bush Jr. and Walter, I think it's Al Gore. You know, that election was disputable. If it were Nigeria, I can imagine Al Gore going to court.
I think it was Florida.
Yeah, the presidential election.
Yes.
It was disputable. Even Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, the recent one, there are reasons why Hillary Clinton could raise arguments against the election and probably proceed to the court. I could imagine that
because she won the popular vote.
If they were Nigerians, they would have contested it. But they overlooked it and prioritized the national interest above the interest of the party or their persons as individuals. You know, we will get to this level, no doubt, but the yardstick, the key is for us to be consistent in implementation, consistent in the practice of democracy, because there's no other system of government that can fit us, even if we're due for some modification.
All right, it's spoken about modification. We're just talking about the fact that this is the 5th in, the cycle from 1999 to 2019. As the process advertised itself to people who saw politics as murky waters or perhaps something a bit too dangerous for them, has the process been able to advertise itself, or, so-called people who are a bit, afraid of, some of these contests that degenerate into even physical, confrontations, has it been able to convince some of them to come and perhaps participate in the process?
Well, I'm not comfortable, sincerely speaking, with the intendment quality of the power players. From 1999 to date, still politicians are looking at politics as investment. Politicians are not looking at politics as veritable platforms for national service. For example, if you take a very good scenario of the jumbo salary or emoluments of the National Assembly. There have been series of cries when President Buhari came on board 2015. He slashed down his emoluments and that of his deputy. They remained rigid that they would not reduce anything regarding their emoluments. There were a lot of hues and cries. If national interest is there, they will have considered the psyche of the nation, especially during the time of, recession. Secondly, there are some national, very important, veritable legislations that came before them from the presidency, for example, that did not get their assent, which, if national interest is there, they should have decided to keep primordial considerations aside. For example, Section 15 subsection 5 of the Constitution says that the state, when you are talking about the state here, you are talking about the totality of the president himself, his ministers, members of the National Assembly, the governors, the commissioners, local government chairmen, members of the academia, members of the armed forces, whosoever constitutes authority is part of the state. So Section 15.5 says that the state shall, in law when the word shall is used, is a mandatory provision, shall abolish all forms of corrupt practices and abuse of power. So here, it is a collective responsibility, even though President Buhari said that he wants to fight corruption, he wants to entrench a robust economy, he wants to fight insecurity. All these have been there since 1999, because Section 15 subsection 5 that says it is a mandatory duty for you to fight it is already there since 1995. The same thing if we are talking about
the
economy.
force of will have not
Yes, the same thing if we are talking about economy, Section 16 is there. Fight against insecurity, Section 14.2 is there. So we have all these things. But then they now decided, the president said, in order to fight corruption, he now decided to spend about 1.5 years moving around the globe, different countries. He signed a lot of bilateral and multilateral agreements with different blocks of the world regarding how our looted money will be repatriated back to Nigeria, of which it was conservatively estimated to be about 70 trillion naira, which will take us, in fact, there will not be need for us to borrow any money.
Let me let you hold that thought for a brief. Our correspondent in Bonny has braved the waters and is getting ready to give us his report. Onegiye Fine Face has his fine face powdered and is ready to roll.
Well, thank you, studios. I'm back to Bonny, the headquarters of Bonny local government area, where elections were postponed in the last round because of violence. But today the atmosphere is very clear. We had early morning blessings in the form of rain showers. So far from the INEC office, just by my side here, materials are dispersing. People are leaving, advocates and staff are leaving the premises. The vast materials for Ward 12, Ward 11, Ward 10. These are communities that can be accessed by boats from the mainland. There are other island communities, so they are tended to those ones that are leaving the mainland to the smaller island communities. And then any moment from now, once within the mainland, we start leaving the INEC office from where members, the electorate in Bonny will be people crowded the gate. That is the adult staff, and they have to be dispersed using a tear gas. But other than that, it's very peaceful. We've spoken with some members of the community earlier, and they are saying they are resolved to make their voices heard, to make their votes count, undeterred by the lapses and challenges recorded in the other rounds of elections. So far, Bonny is calm, Bonny is peaceful, and everybody is ready, prepared to participate in the elections today. Now, as events unfold, we'll get them and make sure we relay them to you in our studios. That's the situation so far in Bonny. We'll now go to the polling units and see what is happening, and then we'll get the information passed across to you. Thank you. It's back to you in the studios now.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And again, fine face. To get to Bonny, of course, you must go on the waters. And of course, you have showed your bravery already. I will be expecting more reports from you as events unfold in the course of the day. We'll also be linking up with all our reporters across the country. 29 states, getting ready to go to the polls now. We will also be, going to Daura to join Mr. President as he, casts his ballot. He's already arrived at the polling unit to vote for the candidate of his choice. With us, my Nasara Kogo Omar is from Katsina State. Perhaps you can give us a brief, distribution in terms of, constituencies in that place, the state, assembly, and of course the gubernatorial. Maybe perhaps you can give us a brief background to your state.
Yes.
As casts his ballot.
Without prejudice to the dominance of a particular political party in Katsina today, which is the APC. Owing to the last 2 weeks election, for example, the president got the second highest votes all over the country from Katsina State, about 1.25 million votes he got from the state. So going by that number and the difference with the second highest ruling, highest party in terms of population, which got about 300,000 or thereabout. You understand? It is expected that the APC will continue.
No, if we don't make projections, yes. Let's just look at the breakdown in terms of local governments.
Yes, the local government, Katsina is having 3 senatorial districts. The Katsina North, the Katsina Central, and the Katsina South. But out of the 3, Katsina Central has the bulk of the domination. For example, if you...
Let's look at the process. And perhaps this can actually guide Nigerians generally, especially since we've said, they need to actually know how to go take their way up the ballot, talking about even getting themselves, familiarizing themselves. If you didn't vote the last time, you will first, of course, do your accreditation. The smart card reader, of course, will also show that you have you are on the list, and then you go forward. And the wife of the president has done that, and she would also cast her ballot shortly. And after which the president will do the same.
The president is teaching the nation many things here. Number 1, punctuality. As an electorate, you should try as much as possible to be to the ballot center in good time. And then the secondly is we are given the doctrine of superiority of the women folk. You understand? Carry your woman along. Define every successful man there is a woman. And remember the International Women's Day, which is yesterday. So for that reason, women who constitute a chunk of our population, about 50% or even higher, constitutes women. So we rely on seeing mass trooping out of women going to the polling centers as the basis to be able to determine the popularity of the participation of the citizenry in this election. So that is another example the president is given. The woman should go first. Like they said, behind every successful man there is a woman. This one, she is putting the woman in front. So our women should be in front banner, not just in terms of voting for voting, but we want maybe 2023 election for them to constitute higher number of presidential candidates too, and gubernatorial as well.
Dr. Denny, one very important thing is punctuality that, you know, Ms. mentioned, and that, of course, will also help INEC to collate and do things on time. The president has showed that already, and is about to cast his own ballot now. He has done that, and of course we expect that other Nigerians will begin to troop to the polling centers if they are not there already to do same.
And it's very interesting really to see that the president has a good sense of humor. You know, fleeing from what happened in the presidential election where he took a gaze at the wife's ballot. I think he cracked another joke here today because I saw the wife smiling a bit, you know. So it's good that administration, governance can be a tough thing, and if you are able to spice it with some humor, make some sense, yes. While you are, make some sense, really. While you are focusing on the bigger picture, the more serious thing, once in a while you inject...
All right, let's join Daura. We understand that the president may want to say a few words after he has cast his ballot.
His voting message.
The president has cast his ballot, and of course his supporters are still there, of course, to capture the moment and enjoy it with him. Earlier in the week, in a broadcast, he advised the voters to go about their, you know, duties, and also exercise their franchise in an orderly and law-abiding manner. He's done so and is led from the front, as we can see. People in his polling units, and of course, indigents of Daura, all savoring the moment with the president. And that perhaps is also instructive that the expectation is that all Nigerians will be part of this process, and that they make sure that they are the ones who, you know, employ, so to speak, the leaders that will be ruling them for the next 4 years, and not just stay at home and expect the process to clean itself. So that the president has cast his ballot and he has gone, and that perhaps is you know, encapsulate the expectation of INEC. The issue of you know, perhaps crowding the area, distorting the process, lobbying, see and buy, all kinds of things that we've seen in the past. The president has led by example. He's cast his ballot, he's gone on.
Yes. That is how it should be. Like we were discussing the political topography of Katsina. The emergence of President Buhari has given very serious popularity to the ruling party. But that does not mean it should be taken for granted, owing to the fact that from 1999 up to 2015, Katsina was a state succinctly, the quantum of the developmental projects executed by PDP in Katsina State happens to be one of those states in the country that really has seen the dividends of democracy. The late Umaru Yar'Adua of blessed memory when he was governor, and Governor Ede regarding who becomes governor. Remember, Aminu Bello Masari is somebody who has been tested at the federal level as former Speaker, House of Representatives, and one time commissioner in the defunct Kaduna State, and at the same time, owing to the popularity of the president's base, the same time too, the keen contestant of the PDP, Yakubu Lado, has been a very, very dogged fighter. He has been in this.
So we expect a very keen contest. All right,
yes.
let's look at the symbolic nature of what the president has done.
Very well, yeah.
In terms of exactly the conduct expected from the voter on the D-Day itself. It's done. It's cast his ballot, it's done his duty, and in a very peaceful and orderly manner, it's now heading home.
Very well. You see, the process in the case of the president is like the ideal situation. I'm not sure he spent up to 5 minutes in the polling booth. Everything went almost seamlessly. But you give it to him because the president of the country, so many arrangements will have been made ahead of his coming, and everything will have been speak and span, as it were, like we saw, But so many instructions came from there. He alluded to some of them as well. The place of the woman in the society, he allowed the wife to go ahead of him. He cracked the joke. But again, I saw that in the second ballot he was casting, the sheet in his hand was so huge, so massive. And it speaks to the problem we are talking about, which is that with the number of political parties we have, the whole process is cumbersome.